What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday NFL Kickoff Show. We've got 13 games to go over, and we've got a Sunday night football game too, but we got a whole show dedicated to that, which I'll talk to you about in just a second. First, thanks for being in here. Hit the like button. We appreciate you. Let's look at the recap screen from, I guess, the last couple of days, including some picks from the prop show. Nico Collins over 74.5. We'll see Propstarz in a second. He hit that on one play. That was cool. Listen, a few red, a few green here. The site plays continue to be really good, so pay attention to those. We're putting site plays on every single early edge show. Let's talk about tonight before we bring in the stars of the show, though. We've got last week we were off, right? We had the NFL kickoff show, but we didn't have the Sunday night football show for obvious reasons. Well, tonight we've got a big one. Sunday night football live kickoff show, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Join us. A lot of picks, a lot of implications. Can't wait to see how this regular slate on Sunday plays out, because there certainly are implications on the Bills specifically. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time. Let's bring in the stars of the show. You know them from every single Sunday kickoff show. We've got Propstarz. We've got Larry Hartstein, otherwise known as the Maestro. Proppy, I got to kick it to you first. Now, I do want to get into these games. We've got 6 early games. We've got 7 late games at 4:25. So we're going to race through some of these, because some of them we just don't have picks for, because obviously there's some starters resting and things of that nature. But how did it feel yesterday to hit Nico Collins on a singular play?
Felt fantastic, Sia, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody in the chat. Good afternoon, Maestro, Sia. Great to see you. But yeah, I actually didn't have the game on quite yet. I was getting ready to tune in. Got a text message from Maestro saying, boom. I had no idea what he was referencing, considering 75 yards is a pretty big total. And then obviously caught a replay quickly and was very pleased to see Nico Collins had an absolutely monster day. Just accounted for just a massive just target share in that offense. Was really the entire Texans passing offense. So certainly a welcome sight. Happy to see that, and looking forward to today. See, I think this slate is very interesting. I like how we have nearly half the game split up between the early and the late stage. Producer Jake and us were talking about that early in the show. I really like how that's formatted.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, from a DFS standpoint, Larry, I got to tell you, I was scrambling the last 30 minutes because I had Christian Kirk in all my DFS lineups because he was the minimum salary, because it looked like DraftKings had made a mistake doing the DFS slate. Well, it turns out he's inactive today. So there's a lot going on. I'm just, in terms of a mindset, are you avoiding some of these games where, and we'll find out as we go through this show, are you avoiding some of these games where there's so much unknown, or do you tend to attack those because the market might be soft on them?
Yeah, no, I'm looking for some spots. Like I wanted to play Sam Darnold because I think he's actually going to have a good passing day with the 49ers backups against the Rams backups as well. And Kamara's out. Lawrence is in. Kirk is out. Those are kind of the big names from the early slate. But I just wanted to touch on that Texans game for a second, because assuming Buffalo wins and Jacksonville wins, we could have C.J. Stroud going to Buffalo next week, and I think that'll be an amazing first-round matchup.
Absolutely. Are we all kind of rooting against Jacksonville? I feel like they don't really belong in the playoffs. That's just me, and I want some of these other teams to kind of fall in, but maybe I'm the outlier there. All right, let's finally get into these Sunday games. We're going to start with the Falcons and the Saints. This is a Saints team at home, favored by 3. They need to win this game to make the playoffs. It's a 41.5 point total. I believe they need some help too. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. There's so many things going on that it's just hard for me to keep everything in place. I'll tell you what, though, I do have a play in this game. We know the Saints need to win. I like the Saints -3 here. This is my first official play that I'm going to give out. The Saints have won 3 out of 4, and I got to say, I'm impressed with how Derek Carr and this entire Saints defense has played over the last month. I mean, we saw them on primetime TV in the middle of the year, in the beginning of the year. It didn't look very good, but I think Derek Carr has really settled in. This defense can get exposed against the run. We saw the Falcons do that last time they played. But the quarterback juggling, I'm just not a fan of it. The Falcons have lost 3 out of 4. Really like the Saints in this spot, particularly at home. So my official play here is the Saints -3. Now, Proppy, I kick it to you because I know you like a particular player on the Falcons side. And I just said, listen, you can expose this Saints team with the running game. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I like rookie phenom Bijan Robinson to go over 57.5 rushing yards. You can still get this number. This number is still presently available on all major books, including MGM. I just think this is a good spot for Bijan. The Falcons, I believe, still have a chance mathematically to get in. Obviously, it's going to require some help, but they need to win this game. They're going to be playing to win this football game. I really think this is the spot where you're going to lean heavily on the rookie running back. Really just don't have much of a passing attack here. And Bijan is clearly their best offensive player. To Bijan's credit, he's had 1,300 combined rushing and receiving yards despite missing roughly 2 games, 1 game, and then didn't play in that 1 game where he had the migraine or the phantom sickness. But all things considered, 1,300 combined yards, 7 touchdowns, and it's been considered a disappointing season to Bijan. Just speaks to how good and how talented he is. 53 yards shy of 1,000 yards on the ground. I know that's an important number to him. I know that's going to certainly sort of dictate whether or not this is viewed as a successful rookie season. Typically is that watermark of 1,000 rushing yards, which I think he's just going to get within the flow of the game. I don't think he's going to need to get additional opportunities in order to get that. But I just see Bijan being the focal point. There's really you're not saving him. If you're saving him, you're saving him for this spot in particular. The Saints' run defense has been middling all season long. The Falcons have the ability to run on any team as well. So I think Bijan gets 15 to 18 rushing attempts in what should be a competitive game environment. So let's go over 57.5 rushing yards today.
Yeah, I think, I think Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier could potentially have decent games today. So I certainly like Bijan to be on top of the rushing tree, if you will, versus Tyler Algier. Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, with Desmond Ridder starting and Heineke inactive, they're obviously going to lean on the run. And Proppy, I love your play because the Saints are 32nd in explosive runs allowed. So they can give up the home run. So he's liable to get this in a couple of big plays. So I like that play. I just cannot, I have no idea how this game is going to go. I do think it's going to be tight, though. Both teams desperate can get in with the Buccaneers losing to Carolina.
Fair enough. Yeah. And we've got some questions. There's some golf questions in the chat. Somebody asked about an outright. Listen, the only guys that I'm even want to consider are guys that are 2, maybe 3 back. Scheffler, obviously 3 back. I would consider a long shot on Ben On. I think he's in that 20 to 1 range. And I think maybe Jordan Spieth, while his odds are a lot shorter, I think he has the capability to close out and get really hot, particularly on the back 9. So I don't have a matchup. I know somebody was asking about that, but this thing isn't going to start. Well, it's just starting kind of now. We actually have a few hours before all of these matchups begin. So if I see one, I'll tweet it out for everybody. All right, Browns, Bengals. I don't really see an edge here, Larry. I mean, listen, we got backups for the Browns. The Bengals, we know some key players are out. T. Higgins, for example, inactive. It's a 36.5 point total. This is one of those games I feel like we can move past pretty quick. I mean, I think there are guys like Pierre Strong that could shine if he gets the lion's share of the carries. With all that said, this feels like let's not talk about it too much unless you have some insight you want to impart.
Yeah, no, I just think Jeff Driscoll and his running ability is going to thrive against this Bengals team. And what did the Bengals have left? You know, deflated because they're out of the playoffs. And Jake Browning hasn't been as good lately. And no T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Probably they're not going to be able to pay both those guys. So that could be it. We're not going to see that trio together again. That's what a lot of the talk is in Cincinnati. Yeah, to me, it'd be Browns or pass, but I'm not playing it personally.
All right. Proppy, any takes in this game, whether it's a lean or whether it's just hey, you were right, Sia, let's just move on.
I meant to hit on this on the top of the show, Sia, but yeah, I really think it's going to be the best advice I can give you at this stage of the season, week 18. Really just pick and choose your spots carefully. As you can see, my volume is as low as it's been all season long. That is not an accident. That is by design. Really, I'm just kind of focusing on the games where there's high stakes or there's something worth playing for at least one side, ideally both sides. So this is one of those games. It's a complete stay away for me, as there are a lot of games like this, but this one is 100% nothing I'm interested in here.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, let's go to another game that doesn't appear to have a lot of interesting things in it. Jets at the Patriots. Again, all these odds powered by BetMGM. We have over at BetMGM Patriots -2. This total has, I mean, are we watching Iowa, like Nebraska at this point? It's a 28.5 point total. Part of this is due to snow, and part of it is due because to these teams being very bad, particularly offensively. I do have an official play here. When you see how the Patriots have been playing over the last 4 weeks, they beat the Steelers. They went to Denver and they beat the Broncos. They lost, kind of narrowly to the Bills and the Chiefs. They were at least competitive in those games. I just think they've been putting their best foot forward over the last 4 weeks. And I don't know that I can say that about the New York Jets. And for the record, if you take a ride down narrative street with me, I do think there is a narrative to build off of this one. And it's simply that Bill Belichick might be coaching his last game. And I certainly don't think he's lost this locker room in any capacity whatsoever. So this is one of those games where I think from a talent standpoint, you could call it kind of even. I would question if the Jets are rolling out like a Breece Hall for 4 quarters. I honestly would question that. I don't think that's the best idea for a guy who has an injury history early in his career. But I do think the Patriots roll out their guys. So my play here is the Patriots money line -125. I put this out on SportsLine. It's in that -120, -125 range still. I actually am somewhat confident in this play, which is kind of scary given the total and given what like the game dynamics and the snow. But Maestro, I'm going to kick it to you. You can feel free to rain on my parade or snow on my parade, if you will, because I get it. If you're like, this is a classic stay away, what are you doing, Sia? But I like this one.
Not at all. 100% on board. I believe this was an official play that I gave out on the Tuesday show. I'm still on it, even though the total continues to drop. The Jets have lost 15 straight to the Patriots, and this is Bill Belichick's most likely his last game. The Jets, the comments out of the locker room after they gave up 428 yards to the Cleveland Browns, including 34 points in the first half. So I'm not saying the defense has quit. I just think they're worn out. They've been on the field the entire season. Trevor Siemian is pretty much a disaster. And in the snow, I don't think he's going to fare much better. And like you said, the Patriots are engaged. They don't have a lot of talent offensively, but they're engaged. And that defense is absolutely for real. So I just think it's Patriots or nothing. I'm on the Patriots. One quote that came out from Quincy Williams, the linebacker, was that I want to beat Bill Belichick. I've never beaten the Patriots, but I know some guys are already thinking about Cancun. When that comment comes out, to me, that says that the Jets are not fully engaged for this one. So, yeah, I like New England as well.
And, it kind of makes sense, probably, because to me, the Jets, if you're a player on the Jets, listen, I understand a lot of these guys are playing for contracts, but a lot of these guys, particularly on the defensive side, they're kind of in that sort of superstar mold, and they have something to look forward to next year. They're going to be a healthier team. They're going to have Aaron Rodgers. To me, it actually makes sense for them to kind of like just try to get out of this game unscathed so they can go into the offseason thinking, all right, we got our guy back next year. We're going to be a contender. Do you agree with Larry and I here, or are we reading into it just way too much?
I would definitely agree with the takes here. This could potentially be Bill Belichick's final game coaching New England here. I know, obviously, it hasn't been the ideal, final season for him, but I know, with his history with the team, you would certainly think a lot of these players would like him to leave with a win. He's hated the Jets his entire career. It's been a rivalry that they've dominated. So certainly I think New England is the side here to play.
All right, let's move on to the Jaguars -3.5 at the Titans. We know the Jaguars need to win to lock up the AFC South, and if they lose, they could be out here. Travis Etienne over 53.5 rushing yards. That's an official play from the prop show from Dave Richard. I'm not looking at it now. I got to imagine he got a good number there. Maybe somebody can check in the chat or on the show because especially with Christian Kirk out, and I understand it's different positions, I think they're going to be leaning on Travis Etienne even more against this Titans defense. It's really losing players by the week. I don't know that I have a play on the side here, but Maestro, I'm going to kick it to you real quick. Do you like Travis Etienne here? And is there anybody else you liked? I did point out that Christian Kirk, again, inactive for this game, but Zay Jones will be here. He will be active, probably going to get a lot of snaps. Evan Ingram, those are two guys I kind of like in the prop market. Trevor Lawrence likely going to play, but I like all of these guys on the Jacksonville side.
Yeah, I kind of like the Titans with the points, but it's been hit so hard, down under the 4 now, down to 3.5. The Titans have not lost a home game by more than 3 points. They've been embarrassed the last couple of weeks. This is the last stand for Derrick Henry, the last stand for Ryan Tannehill, who is starting. So I think they're going to put out a representative effort. And Trevor Lawrence, those last 4 games that he's played, and he's played hurt in some of them, his decision-making is not the same. He's been sloppy. I was waiting for the Kirk news. I thought he was going to be in, and that would have been a huge lift. Now they don't have him again. I do think Etienne will be heavily featured, but I think this is going to be a tight game, a field goal game. And right now, I definitely lean Titans.
Yeah, and thanks to Kalen Johnson, who said 55.5 over there on FanDuel, where he looked as far as that rushing prop. Proppy, I agree with Larry here. I mean, I think what I was saying more about ETN and Ingram and Zay Jones, I think it's those short area targets, which those guys tend to enjoy. I think they're going to get peppered because Trevor Lawrence hasn't been good pretty much all season. Even when they were winning, Trevor Lawrence wasn't good. So I think that's what we're going to see. With that said, are you on the Titan side if you had to take anything here?
I don't have a strong inkling or conviction either side of this game personally. I do feel it is going to be ultimately a close game decided by under 6 points. I will say that something interesting regarding Calvin Ridley. His splits with Zay Jones active are drastically better than with Zay Jones inactive. You would naturally think there would be just a lot more mouths to feed for Jacksonville, but just having Zay Jones on the field for whatever reason has really benefited Calvin Ridley. Takes a little bit of pressure off of him, a little less attention for the outside boundary wide receiver. His receiving line at only 48.5 yards against a pass funnel Tennessee defense could be somewhere to look at.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next game here because speaking of receiving yards, Proppy, you like a guy in this Vikings at Lions game. Lions favored by 4, 47.5 point total, one of the higher ones on this entire slate. You like Justin Jefferson's over, but I want you to speak to why you like it and where the line is now versus when you put it in on the prop show and or on SportsLine.
Yeah, absolutely, Sia. So, yeah, I love Justin Jefferson today. On the Friday prop show, gave this at 86.5 yards. Last I checked, this is all the way up to 99.5 yards. So, some significant closing line value here in our favor. This just projects to be a spot for Justin Jefferson, who's 118 yards shy of 1,000 yards. I know that is an important milestone to Justin Jefferson. I really believe with Nick Mullins at quarterback, when we've seen this pair working together, Nick Mullins, for better or worse, is not afraid to give Justin Jefferson a lot of opportunities for 50-50 balls, and he is not afraid to put it in some tight windows there for Jefferson. So I think Jefferson is going to get peppered with targets against a Detroit pass defense that has been terrible all year. They've bled a ton of production to opposing number one wide receivers as well. We saw CeeDee Lamb have a career best game last week against this Detroit pass defense. We've seen Justin Jefferson in the past eclipse 200 yards against this Detroit pass defense. Detroit also double teams opposing number one wide receivers or first reads at one of the lowest rates in the league. So this is just a great matchup for a motivated Justin Jefferson. We've got the quarterback we want in Nick Mullins over Jared Hall, who obviously just didn't look NFL ready. So, yeah, I think this is a great spot for Justin Jefferson, who I know is going to be motivated to have a big game here. Also, Detroit, they may even end up pulling their starters. Not that I think that's even going to make much of a difference here after the first half here. So, love Justin Jefferson to potentially have a spike game.
Yeah, absolutely love it. I mean, the reaction in the chat is like Joe Neuenfeld. He said, my God, it's at 101.5, which at BetMGM and some of the other books, it's all the way at 101.5. And I think that does beg the question. I mean, I got to think, Proppy, I mean, this is such a good sales pitch for SportsLine and for watching the prop show, because correct me if I'm wrong, there's no way you can take this at 101.5 when you could have gotten it if you follow SportsLine, or if you're a member of SportsLine, you could have gotten it at 86.5.
Yeah, even though I do believe he's going to easily eclipse triple digits here, have a monster game, I'm not comfortable playing it when the number was as low as it was at 86.5. That's just so much value to leave on the table, in my opinion. So certainly pays to watch. Have notifications on. I get these plays out as soon as I feel there is value on said line. So, yeah, that's obviously some tremendous closing line value.
Absolutely love it. And by the way, if you want to get 60% off our annual plan at SportsLine and get these picks when Proppy puts them out, and by the way, you can click notifications on for Propstarz, for Maestro, for myself, or for any other capper that you love, and you'll literally get the pick pinged to your phone right away. All you have to do is go to sportsline.com/join and type in winners with the promo code. Some of you in the chat, I should say most of you in the chat, are already members, but if you're not, or if you know somebody that's not, type in winners and get 60% off the annual plan. There's one other play we have in this game, and it's courtesy of RJ. He likes the Lions here, first half -2.5. And Maestro, let me go to you here, because I think there's speculation that these starters are going to play at least a half. I don't know that we can really confirm that one way or the other, but talk to me about your impressions in terms of what the lines are going to pedal out for this game.
I'm taking Dan Campbell at his word that he's going to play his starters because their outside chance of the number 2 seed is not going to be determined till the late window. So unless they're up, 28-0, 35-0, I think we're going to see the starters for the whole game, assuming the Vikings are, within 10 to 14 points, which they might be with Nick Mullins back at quarterback. We know how he throws all those picks, but he does move the offense, and Jefferson was a great play. A shout out to the chat for pointing out DeAndre Hopkins has a lot riding on this game, 39 yards, 7 catches, 2 touchdowns. If he gets all of that, he makes $750 extra $1,000. So Tannehill is going to be feeding him. But in this game, if I could just get to a prop that I like in this game, and it's on the site already, Ty Chandler, who I know is your favorite. See, I know you rode him when everybody was not realizing how much better he was than Alexander Mattison. I'm going under 49.5 for Ty Chandler because this Lions defense, you can't run on them, especially lately. 2.7 yards per carry the last 3 weeks. And you have a Vikings team that will not have Brian O'Neill up front. Darisaw is good to go, but he was questionable all week. And the thing about it is Madison is back now, and he played 40% of the snaps last week. He didn't get a lot of carries, but he did play 40% of the snaps. We just saw this matchup 2 weeks ago. Ty Chandler went absolutely nowhere, 8 carries for 17 yards. So I got it under 49.5, and it's a look I really like. But the one thing I'm worried about is, yes, if they get up big, if they pull those starters, he could get some garbage run lately, but I'm just counting on it being a Nick Mullins game, having a pass coming from behind as opposed to Ty Chandler rushing the ball.
Yeah, completely makes sense. JB says Mullins is liable to get Jefferson killed with his ball placement. Well, that's actually true. Laporta, anytime touchdown, says Rava Nelly. All right, let's move on to the next game here. Buccaneers -4.5 at the Panthers. This line has kind of bounced back and forth, I believe, between 4.5 and 3.5, but it's 4.5 here at BetMGM, 36.5 point total. That total is a little lower than I anticipated, if I'm being honest here. We do have an official pick from EC, from the prop show, Rachaad White over 96.5 rushing and receiving yards. Certainly a great matchup for Rachaad White. And by the way, speaking of closing line value, I'm seeing this line at about 98.5 and 100.5 at a lot of places. There's only one book that still has it at 96.5. So really good find there. I like Rachaad this week. I'm playing him in DFS. Proppy, let me go to you in this game. Any take on this game? I think there are guys like Jonathan Mingo is not playing in this game. I think there are guys like DJ Shark that have some value in the prop market. I haven't gotten there yet with him, but there are guys that I kind of like. Obviously, Mike Evans is in play, even Chris Godwin in play for this one. Any takes on this game whatsoever?
Yeah, I actually like a side quite a bit in this game. My favorite side of the week, I would say. I like the Panthers. I like the Panthers, especially if you can find them at 4.5 or 4. I just think this is a spot they're being overlooked. Just the majority of the public that I've seen is backing Tampa Bay. I know that there must be some sharp money coming in on Carolina because it's originally opened at 5.5 for Tampa Bay here. I just think this is a spot. The Panthers season, it's obviously been largely a disaster with Bryce Young, but at home as a live home dog, I think we're just going to see a team that has nothing to lose here and wants to end the season with at least, being competitive. They've gotten pretty much wiped out and embarrassed. The last few weeks have really played poorly, but Baker Mayfield's not been 100%. Larry mentioned he's been phenomenal on the road, which he has, and he's really had a phenomenal season. But I just think Carolina is going to be up for this game. I think this game is going to be competitive. I think it's easy to assume just because it's a must-win game for Tampa Bay that they're going to come in here and just wipe out Carolina. But a divisional opponent who has nothing to lose at home, I think, has their backs against the wall and is very dangerous. So I like the Panthers quite a bit. Would not be surprised whatsoever if they won outright.
Yeah, Panthers at home, division game. It certainly makes sense. Maestro, before I kick it to you on any take in this game, if you have one, let's look at the NFC South playoff scenario because, listen, 3 out of 4 of these teams have plenty to play for. Bucks clinch the NFC South with a win at the Panthers. So we know that. But if the Bucks lose, the winner of the Falcons and Saints wins the division. So these games for these 3 teams, really, really important. And I'm sure Carolina would like to play spoiler. Before we move on to the Sunday late slate, which has 7 games, Maestro, any takes in this game? It's interesting. Japan in the chat, he says, Mike Evans over 62.5 receiving yards. That certainly makes sense to me. Mike Evans has had an amazing season. I think I might be staying away from it. And honestly, part of the reason the low total does kind of scare me, but also Baker Mayfield's ribs scares me in terms of staying in the pocket and hitting Evans downfield, or at least trying to more than on a few occasions, which is what it's going to take. What do you think of Mike Evans or this game in general?
I was actually toying with that one myself, Japan and Sia. 7 catches, 12 targets, 162 yards, and a touchdown is what he did the first time, including a 75-yarder. J.C. Horn is back, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. So I do like the look of Mike Evans because Baker Mayfield has been great on the road. A 103.5 passer rating, 18 TDs, and only 3 interceptions. The ribs are a concern, but he's good to go. And assuming he can stay in the game and not tweak it, I do like that look for Mike Evans. A lot of sharps are on the Panthers, like Alex, but they're just so bad offensively. And what we saw last week was really pathetic against the Jaguars. So it's a tough one. I'm staying away from the spread, but I'm still eyeing Mike Evans.
All right. Speaking of eyeing some points, let's go to the Sunday late slate, because the Cowboys minus 13 at the Commanders, 47-point total. And when I reference points, I'm talking about Mike Evans and yards. Let's talk about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, this guy's, in DFS, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott are very popular stacks. And RJ likes a team total in this game. Cowboys team total over 29.5. I actually really like that as well. I think they can do that in so many different ways, not just through the passing game, potentially through the defense, creating some short fields. I think Tony Pollard can have a good game. I think Rico Dowdle in garbage time can have a good game against Washington. So I like this team total from RJ a lot. Maestro, I'm going to go to you first here. Anything you like? This is our only official pick in this game. I don't like anything on the Washington side. I think it's way too unpredictable, particularly from a prop standpoint. Anything you like in this game? I mean, 13 points is a lot. I don't know that we can concede it's a definite cover by Dallas, which is why RJ went the team total route. What do you like in this one, if anything?
I like that play from RJ. The wind is supposed to be about 19 miles per hour, which is kind of on the borderline when it starts to affect passing. But Commanders have given up 27 or more, and I believe now 7 straight. The worst defense in all of football since they traded away Montez Sweat and Chase Young. The Cowboys already put up 45 against them. In the first matchup, the Cowboys averaged 8.6 yards per play, which would obviously lead the NFL if that was for a full season. So I do like the play from RJ. One guy I was looking at is Brandon Cooks. His role has increased the second half of the season. I was looking at his props, but then again, with the wind, I was a little bit worried about the wind and whether the Commanders are going to push the Cowboys enough. You have Sam Howell at quarterback. So, you pick sixes, sack fumbles are all in play to get the Cowboys team total over.
Yeah, Proppy, part of me wants to take Washington here. I'm not going to do it, but 13 is a lot of points. It is a division game, and there's certainly no sign that Washington would sit anybody. They certainly have no reason to. Sam Howell has one more chance to debut himself. All his receivers are healthy. Brian Robinson looks like he's healthy. Antonio Gibson. That's where I would lean here. But again, I don't think I have the guts to take my team here. I like the Cowboys team total. Anything you like in this one before we move to Rams 49ers?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Washington has been scrappy, especially in the division. Obviously, we know I'm an Eagles fan here. We've seen them really push the Eagles twice, had a really impressive comeback versus the Eagles, and then the Eagles found themselves trailing against the Commanders. So, yeah, I think this is a spot if Dallas isn't careful. Sam Howell certainly has shown he's capable of racking up a lot of yards and just a lot of volume from this Washington passing attack. So Dallas has to be careful here. They absolutely need to win this game. 13 points is a tremendous amount of points. If the wind was not an issue, I would be all over CeeDee Lamb. It is 93.5 yards, which is an absolute massive number coming off that career best game last week. I really believe CeeDee Lamb has firmly established himself as one of the elite wide receivers in that tier with the Justin Jefferson, with the Tyreek Hill. This guy's absolutely phenomenal, and this is just an incredible matchup against Washington's pass defense, which has been one of the league's worst all season long, giving up more explosive passing plays, 15-plus yards than any defense in the league. They also double team at the lowest rate as well. So if weather was not an issue here, and Sam Howell was able to push Dallas into passing the ball a little bit more than they would like to, CeeDee Lamb could go absolutely nuclear, or despite going nuclear last week, he could have an absolute monster game against Washington as well. So something to look out for. I do still like CeeDee Lamb, just not enough with his yards being 93.5 to back him as an official play with the weather and also being 13-point favorites.
Yeah, Big Cheesy says he likes Rico Dowdle anytime touchdown and Gallup anytime touchdown. I think Rico Dowdle and Tony Pollard could have good games today. I mean, remember, it was 2 weeks ago that I think the Jets were, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, the Jets were playing Washington, and Breece Hall had been very inefficient like the prior 3 or 4 weeks, much like Tony Pollard has been this whole season. But talk about a get right spot. I mean, you can really neutralize the CeeDee Lamb prop. I mean, the under really could come in if you just see Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle running all over Washington. So that's something to consider there. Maybe in your DFS lineups too, something to consider. It's never fun clicking Tony Pollard, but this might be the spot to do it. All right, Rams at the 49ers. Listen, this is Backupville. We know that because both of these teams securely in the playoffs. Maestro, you had mentioned you like Sam Darnold. You were kind of hoping you'd see some Sam Darnold props. I think we're going to see a lot of Jordan Mason. He's really popular in DFS circles, but I don't know that we're 100% sure. We're not going to see any Elijah Mitchell, or I guess Jeremy McNichols is on this San Francisco team as well. Either way, this is one of 3 of the 13 games that we don't have official plays on, and I get it. Maestro, anything on this one before we move on?
Yeah, no, I do like the 49ers quite a bit in the first half. If you go to SportsLine, you'll see my write-up there. But basically, the Rams are throwing out Carson Wentz, and we know they have absolutely no depth behind their frontline talent, all of which is going to sit, whereas the 49ers roster is better top to bottom. Sam Darnold looked good when he came into that game against the Ravens, and I think he'll play better. You also have Deebo Samuel saying he's going to play some. I think the 49ers starters, some of them, are going to get some work because otherwise they're going to be off for 3 weeks. So whereas the Rams obviously are playing next week. So the Rams are not going to sit. I'm not going to play anyone. The 49ers, I believe, play some guys in the first half. I like the 49ers in the first half. I wish I had gotten it at 2.5, but now we're seeing 3s across the market.
Yeah, I even see a 3.5. When did you say you put this on SportsLine? If so, I missed it. What was the number when you put it out?
It was -3, -105.
Okay, that's still not bad. I actually, Larry, I really like that because I think we know what we're getting out of Carson Wentz. And I mean, that's like enough said there. And you're right from a top to bottom thing. Even if some of the starters are out for San Francisco, they're backup receivers like Bell, Jawan Jennings, like those guys are actually pretty good, even the backups at the tight end position. So really like that. All right, Proppy, any takes on this game before we move on to your Eagles at the Giants?
No takes from me, Sia. Ready to talk about my Philadelphia Eagles, who are rolling right now. Just kidding.
I love it. First of all, I love the brevity, given that it's a 13-game slate. So Eagles -4.5 at the Giants. The total here is 43. Again, another 425 games, 7 425 games. Proppy, I'm going to go to you. I don't know what to do with this game. I think weather we do need to monitor. Is it going to be snowing? And it looks like you, Larry, you might be in a better situation than me to gauge that. But it looks like we're going to have some precipitation, potentially some snow. This line was 5.5. It's down to 4.5 now, Proppy, and I kind of get it because this Eagles defense has been pretty deplorable. Devontae Smith is out for this game. DeAndre Swift is also out for this game, I believe. What do you like in this one?
Whew, this is a tough one, Sia. I personally believe that the Eagles, their season, I don't know if it's correct to proclaim it as being lost, but I believe the locker room has splintered. I believe there's some serious issues going on that aren't coming to the surface because it's still a veteran-led locker room with a lot of experienced guys, guys like Lane Johnson, Kelsey, who wouldn't allow these things to go out publicly mid-season or during the season while they're still playing. But I think afterwards we're going to find out that there are some serious issues. I think Sirianni's potentially lost the locker room. It's been splintered. The amount of talent that this Eagles team has defensively and the performance just aren't matching up, aren't aligning. They're not improving. They're cratering. We're just watching them play worse and worse. So it's very hard to have any confidence whatsoever, and this pains me to say this, in this Eagles team here. So I'm staying away from the Eagles right now. I just, again, no confidence in them whatsoever. I think there's some serious underlying issues that are going to come to light once the season ends that aren't quite out in the public yet.
And Maestro, the Giants aren't playing terrible football either. And I know, given how this season started, they got a little unlucky with injuries, but we're also just kind of a bad team. But they're ending on such a good note that I think there is something to be said for momentum for Brian Daboll and company going into next season. And I'll say, before I get to your official pick, Dave Richards' official pick is Saquon Barkley over 61.5 rushing yards. I like that. I like his all-purpose yards in this one too. But Maestro, you have an official play on the side here. Let's hear it.
Yeah, no, I love that play with Saquon. I believe he needs a little over 80 to hit the milestone. The Eagles went to an escape room this week to kind of do team bonding. I've never been, but they came out saying that, things are changed, a breath of fresh air, a new attitude, and that might all be true. But when they watch the Cowboys get up to a big lead against the Commanders, Nick Sirianni is going to have to make a decision about, who's going to rest to get ready for next week, because that's the game that's going to affect their playoffs. So I think maybe they do have a better attitude. Maybe they, cleared some air. But I think the Giants are the play. As long as Tyrod Taylor is good to go. He came up with the back injury this week, which was a little surprising. But I took the Giants at +5.5. It looks like it's all Giants money all week because of that. The Giants are going to play hard. They've played better the last few weeks, and they had a chance, in that first meeting. They lose 33-25, easily covered that game. Guy got pushed out of the end zone on that Hail Mary, which could have been a flag against the Eagles. It wasn't thrown. So I'll take the Giants to be competitive, in their last home game, and the Eagles just to get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting game. Go ahead, Proppy.
Could you just imagine if you owned an escape room right now, particularly the one that the Philadelphia Eagles attended, and the Eagles happened to go on a run, starting by winning this game and then potentially going to the Super Bowl? It would be great for business. So if you're the owner of that escape room, I'm sure you're rooting for this Eagles team to turn their season around and point to their visit as the big reason why.
Have you guys done that? I've never done it.
I have not been in an escape room. I have been to one of those places where you destroy things.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
They have computer monitors and old fax machines, and you wear goggles, and they give you various baseball bats, and it's another team building type thing.
I mean, if you want to call it that. I thought you were joking when you said escape room, by the way. I thought you were about to make a joke. Then I realized I missed a piece of news about what the Philadelphia Eagles did this week. Listen, those things can sometimes turn things around, but I don't think that's going to be enough. We'll see how it manifests on the field today. All right, let's go to a game where, boy, there are a lot of official picks in this one. And Maestro, I'm going to start with you here because your pick mirrors mine, so I'll let you do the talking. Bears at the Packers. Packers, we know, need to win. Bears are debuting a lot of things. They're debuting their defense, which is awesome. They're debuting Justin Fields because he's really trying to figure out I guess the Bears are trying to figure out if he's going to be the quarterback of the future. All hands on deck for the Bears and the Packers. Maestro, what do you like in this one?
This is like a Super Bowl for the Bears to try and spoil the Packers season in Lambeau. I know they haven't won there in a long time, but they feel like the Lions from last season. Remember how great the Lions were down the stretch? That's how the Bears have been the second half of the season, 6-1-1 against the number. The defense playing lights out. Jair Alexander is back for the Packers, but I think DJ Moore should have made the Pro Bowl, and I think he's going to make a statement together with Justin Fields, who I think is going to run wild against the Packers. He had 59 rushing yards in the first game. The Packers are giving up a ton of rushing yards to quarterbacks. So I think Justin Fields, DJ Moore do it on offense. The Bears defense just keeps doing what it's doing, and we get a tight game down to the wire. I took the points.
Yeah, I took the points as well. You got a better price. You got it at -105. I got it at -115. Not a huge difference there. But yeah, if this was 2.5, I honestly might have laid off it. Although I think you can absolutely make the argument that the Bears can win this game. I just love how this team is playing. They're playing like a team that's still in it. And I think Chicago has a lot to look. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, you have a lot to look forward to, no matter what they do with Justin Fields next year. We've got a lot of other official picks in this game. EC's got Jordan Love over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Is that right? It's at -165. I thought that number would be a little bit lower. EC also has Jordan Love under a half interception at +105. And Dave's got Aaron Jones over 63.5 rushing yards. I really like Aaron Jones in this game. I'd be looking maybe at his rushing yards, but also his rushing and receiving. Proppy, anything else on this game before we move on?
I would just say really quickly, as far as the EC's players are concerned, I mentioned this on the Friday Prop Show. If you're going to take Jordan Love to throw at least 2 passing touchdowns and not throw an interception, in my opinion, you might as well just take the Packers at -3 here. If he's going to do that, the Packers, I think, are very, very likely to win the game. Not to discredit EC's picks, but that would just be my take regarding that. And yeah, I think this game is going to be certainly very tight. Both these teams playing very well at this stage of the season. Stakes on both sides. Obviously, we know Green Bay, if they win, they advance. But Chicago really wants to end the season on a high note. See if Justin Fields ends up being the potential quarterback of the future. If he does win, there is a lot of narratives coming out of Chicago that would cement his status as a starting quarterback heading into next season.
Yeah, 2 quick things, Maestro, before I go to you. One, in the Eagles-Giants game, it's looking like we're going to avoid snow most likely, maybe a chance of rain. That's what I'm seeing right now. So shouldn't be a big weather game. Again, that's at 425. You can kind of wait and see there. And Maestro, Bears-Packers, I just wanted to point out before I go to you, it's a 46-point total. Like we're looking for, this is one of the higher totals on the slate. So I think the expectation is both these quarterbacks are going to play pretty well. Maestro, go ahead.
Yeah, the weather is fine. The wind is not going to be strong, which is kind of surprising for Green Bay this time of year. No Jalen Johnson, which helps out, EC's play for Jordan Love. So that is a big loss for the Bears secondary, but they've been playing well regardless. And no Darnell Mooney. Cole Kmet is questionable. That's why I really love DJ Moore in this game because, Kmet was not 100% last week. Mooney is out. DJ Moore is going to go off.
Yeah, you wonder if a guy like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, see it real quick. Christian Watson returning to the lineup for Green Bay. Certainly a big boost for their offense. He's been in and out of the lineup all year long. But when he has been on the field, it hasn't resulted in a lot of individual production for him. But Jordan Love has been very effective, and the passing offense has been very effective just by him being out there.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And I'll be honest, when I had the Bears +3, I expected Watson to sit. I figured Dontavian Wicks would be playing, who's very good. Jaden Reed was going to be playing, who's very good. But that definitely adds an element that I did not anticipate. I do still like the Bears +3, but listen, Jordan Love has all of his weapons before him. And that's a pretty big deal, especially when you talk about Christian Watson. All right, speaking of weapons, we're talking Seahawks. We're talking Cardinals. This is a huge total. It's the biggest one. It's tied for the biggest one on the slate. 47.5 over at BetMGM. Seahawks favored by 3 at Arizona. Weapons. Well, we got Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, their weapons, right? And so, Proppy, I'm going to start with you. You have a prop on Kenneth Walker.
I do indeed see. I gave this out on the Friday show. Got some tremendous closing line value here as well. Gave out Kenneth Walker over 12.5 rushing attempts. This has ticked up to 14.5. Heavily juiced to the over. I personally stay away at 14.5. If you can possibly still find some 13.5s, I'm good with that. But for 14.5, if you're not getting plus money, to me, the value is all but sucked out dry from this play. But I love this spot for Kenneth Walker, who's going to be handling the lion's share of the load against this Arizona run defense that is absolutely dismal. Arizona, one of the few defenses whose pass defense and run defense are equally dismal, but their run defense is particularly bad. And we've seen Pete Carroll and Seattle tend to lean heavily on the run game when there is a clear path to do that. So, yeah, I think Kenneth Walker ends up seeing a lot of work. Zachary Charbonnet has come on, but he's really had a minimal impact as far as the rushing share is concerned when Kenneth Walker has been active. So I really think Kenneth Walker's floor in this game, as long as it's remotely competitive, and we know Seattle needs to win this game, is 15 to 17 rushing attempts here. So obviously love the number at 12.5 if you're able to get it there.
Yeah, I like that number quite a bit. And Maestro, I like your number on DK Metcalf. You like an over. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be DK Metcalf today. Proppy was saying that the defense for Arizona equally bad. I'm going to say they're worse against the pass because over the last 5 weeks, dead last in EPA per dropback. The matchup that DK Metcalf has, he's going to see a lot of Starling Thomas. He's an undrafted rookie out of UAB, only playing because of injury. He has a 44.2 grade at PFF, which is horrific. He's allowed 33 of 41 passes his way to be caught. DK Metcalf, they're going to lean on him. I think he's going to break a big one. I like the Seahawks in this game. I think they're going to have trouble stopping the run. Arizona has been running the ball well, but there's no DJ Humphries for the Cardinals. Their left tackle gone for the year. And the Seahawks do get Jordan Brooks back to help in terms of trying to slow down the run game. But in terms of Seattle's offense, I think it's going to be a huge game for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I'm just curious, Maestro, I'm going to kick it to you real quick. Do you have a lean on the side here? Seahawks on the road.
Yeah, I liked it at 2.5, posted it at 2.5 on the site. I'm not going to play it at 3. I think that's the most likely outcome, is 24-21, 27-24, something in that range for the Seahawks. I think that is the most likely outcome. I don't think the Cardinals are going to get blown out here, but they're just a little bit overvalued after what they did to Proppy's Eagles, as huge underdogs. And now they're coming back. That was 3.5. The look ahead was 3.5. And then it got all the way down to 2.5, and now you're seeing 3.
Very, very interesting analysis there. Glad I kicked it to you. All right, we've got 2 more games to cover before we put our best bets up, and we want to leave you some time. Good news, we can leave you some time because these next 2 games we don't have official plays on, and frankly, there's a very obvious reason for it. Broncos at the Raiders. Raiders -3 at home here, 37-point total. I don't really know that I have any expectations from this game. I don't know how hard the Broncos are going to go in this one. I think Devontae Adams, I think Zamir White, I think Jacoby Myers, I think they're all in play to have a good game. Like, if anything, I'd take the Raiders here because they are playing for Antonio Pierce. I do think that actually means something, especially when you have a guy like Devontae Adams being very vocal about that. Proppy, with that said, anything you'd touch in this game? Do you agree with me that the lean would be toward the Raiders? Is it an absolute stay away?
I would agree, just based on the Raiders really playing for Antonio Pierce to secure the head coaching job going into the future. Obviously, it's proven to be he's a player's coach, and the team has really rallied behind Antonio Pierce since taking over the job. So I do think they'll be motivated to get him and secure him this win, and ideally, push for him to be the head coach heading into next season. I am interested to see both running backs here, Zamir White, who's really performed well. Josh Jacobs has had a very down season. Zamir White has really filled in very nicely. He's been far more efficient than Jacobs. We'll see if that trend continues, if he can carve out a role heading into next season. And then the same kind of thing happening in the Broncos backfield as well. We're talking about Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams. Javonte came back from this really terrible injury, multiple torn ligaments in his knee in record time. Had some good spots, but wasn't terribly efficient throughout the season. We're going to see a heavy dose of Jaleel McLaughlin today. I think this is an opportunity to see for Sean Payton to see if he's a guy that can carve out a significant role heading into the year, and he'll kind of dictate how the Broncos approach the position, also how they approach Javonte Williams potentially as a cap cut heading into the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no reason to play Javonte Williams here, given the injury history that you just talked about. And why not debut Jaleel McLaughlin alongside Jarrett Stidham, who, by the way, to credit to, like, if you think the Broncos can hang, Jarrett Stidham does have a lot to play for. And in his case, it's really relevance. I mean, he's going to be a backup in this league for quite some time, in my opinion. I think he's decent. But, I mean, if he can show out, it just adds to his resume. And guys like that don't get a chance to add to their resume much. Maestro, in this game, any takes?
Something interesting happened today when we saw who took the Raiders in Circa Survivor. They're playing for over $9 million. There's 4 people left. They all had the Bengals available. They did chop about $1.5 million each, but they're still playing for a few million today. And instead of all 4 taking the Bengals, which was the obvious play, 2 of them took the Raiders and are putting their faith in the Raiders and hoping maybe there's a contrary, somehow the Browns with Jeff Driscoll pull that off and they chop with just the Raiders. I do think the Raiders show up big for Antonio Pierce, and Devontae Adams came out and said he wants him back. So I think it's definitely a nice lean for the Raiders.
All right, let's move on to the last game. A game I have even less takes than the game we just talked about. It's the Chiefs at the Chargers. Chargers -3, 35-point total. I mean, I don't even know how we spend more than 2 minutes on this game. Maestro, I'm going to kick it to you. Any takes on this one?
I actually like the Chargers just because I think there's no team that cares less this week than the Chiefs. You may get Chris Jones out there to get a half a sack. You may get Kelsey out there to get 16 yards. But other than that, they absolutely do not care about this game. And Josh Palmer does come back for the Chargers. That helps Easton stick. So I just think the Chiefs are totally game planning for next week, and they don't care at all. The Chargers have been competitive under the interim coach the last couple of weeks. So I think it's a Chargers day to cover this number.
Hey, I don't want to forget this before I kick it to you, Proppy. Japan in the chat, always in the chat, always being super supportive. He's got Khalil Shakir props. Like he's typing away over here. He's got Khalil Shakir ladders up to like 90 plus. He's got Khalil Shakir over, or I should say, first touchdown score at plus 2,500. I did want to point that out for those of you that haven't left yet, because I know the games are about to start. Don't forget that 7:30 show tonight. We're gonna have a lot of plays for you. We're gonna have a lot of discussion for you, more importantly. So Japan, love the confidence in Khalil Shakir. Maybe I'll look into it there. Proppy, any takes on this Chiefs-Chargers game before we get our best bet recap screen up?
3 quick takes. First and foremost, shout out to Japan in the chat. Keep doing you, buddy. Great job. Number 2, go Eagles, even though it's been a just disastrous season. Actually, 4 takes. Third, watch our stream tonight. It's going to be absolutely excellent. Cannot wait for it. See ya. And then fourth and final take is I'm just going to second my esteemed colleague, the Maestro, who summed this game up perfectly. I have nothing else to add.
I love that. That's 2 games. This is a record. That's 2 games where Proppy was extremely short, although that was like 4 takes of you being extremely short. So it was a little paradoxical, if you will. All right, let's get the best bets up real quick here. We've got a lot here. I'm sure you guys were kind of taking notes along the way, considering what bets you were going to make here. But again, I've got the 3 plays here. Maestro has the 3 plays. I don't think we need to go over them, Proppy, but just don't forget there's plays on SportsLine, right? Maestro kept referencing Proppy too, the plays that they put on SportsLine versus the plays that they're bringing to the show. So you got to be a SportsLine member to get all of those plays. RJ, EC, Dave Richard, ton of plays here, even for week 18. We're trying to bring you as much as we possibly can. We got 5 minutes before kickoff. It's the final regular season week, but that doesn't mean football's even close to over, right? We've got wild card weekend, which is going to be amazing. We've got so much more football to go. So I think that'll basically do it. Listen, let's real quick, let's just remind everybody about the 7:30 stream tonight. If we can put that graphic up, 7:30 tonight, we've got Bills, we've got Dolphins, we've got major implications on the AFC East and potentially the playoffs here. Sunday Night Live kickoff show. We'll get your first touchdown scores. We'll get you your props. We'll get you your sides and totals. There was a comment I wanted to hit before we get out of here. Oh, geez, Steve. He says, totaled my car 2 days later. Oh, wow. Geez, I'm not going to read that one out loud. Steve, I know you had gotten in that car accident, and we hope you are doing much, much better. So, again, I know you had tweeted about that, and it sounds like hopefully you're on the mend. Let's have a great week 18. We'll see you tonight at 7:30. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Jake the Snake, we've left you 4.5 minutes to get some last-minute bets in here. On behalf of Jake the Snake, on behalf of Maestro, on behalf of Proppy, I am the counselor. This is the Early Edge, and we rest our case.